This is Gary Atensi with CNTV, and today we're in Louisville, Colorado. I am here at Vincent, Romeo, and Rodriguez. Since 1995, they've been providing holistic elder care planning for the Colorado communities. I am here with partner Thomas Rodriguez. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Thomas. Let's start off a little bit about yourself. You began the professional career in 1999. You joined the team here in 2002. More recently, 2016, 2015, you were basically named top lawyer, super lawyer. We've got quite a journey that you've come on here. Let's start back a little bit at the beginning. What is it that got you involved in this type of profession?
You know, well, in the law in general, or, you know, helping people. I mean, I got very interested in that, helping. You know, I was initially a criminal lawyer, worked for the public defender's office for a little while. Trying to help people solve their problems was what really interested me. You know, I met a lot of people with a lot of diverse problems, and even more diverse in the public defender's office, no less. But you know, that's probably the most important thing. And now, you know, through the practice of law and helping the elderly, you know, I've been very interested in trying to help people navigate through these difficult problems. My focus is primarily on litigation. People come to us, they are very stressed while they're dealing with the case. They may be dealing with the loss of a loved one, or a loved one who may be losing capacity. They often are dealing with maybe a family member who has taken advantage of the situation and started to steal money from the persons. Right. And so helping them through the legal aspects of it, but also the emotional aspects, and trying to help them solve the problem, you know, in the most efficient and inexpensive and productive way possible.
Excellent. I mean, I imagine for most of us what matters is protecting what matters most, which is quality of life. Many times we have to understand our legal rights as we go through that maze. Really, this is what the firm is designed for, to help people through that navigation, like you said.
Right, it is. And so, you know, we do a variety of things here at the firm, not just litigation like I focus on. I have two law partners that do more transactional work, and we do life care planning, which is kind of a different concept, particularly in Colorado, where we help and kind of have a holistic approach to not just solving a single problem the person may have, but looking at the big picture. You know, do they have appropriate care in their home? We have caregivers on staff.
Basically, they say that it takes a village to raise a child.
It does.
Here, basically, it takes a team to protect an individual, really. You've got really a team approach here under one roof. It's a program called HELP. Tell me about how that works.
Well, and so that's the idea. When they first come in, we try to solve, you know, not only the immediate problem they may be facing. We look at the entire picture. You know, do they have estate planning that needs to be done? Are they in the home? You know, and if they're in the home, is there adequate care to provide for them? If it's not, you know, then we look a little deeper into the situation and try, you know, to make sure to give people pieces of the puzzle to try to help them get the support that they need in the home. Maybe they're coming in, they're looking for, you know, an assisted living type scenario. Maybe they need Medicaid planning or something along those lines. Our life care planning component of this firm tries to look at kind of the big picture and make sure they're addressing all the needs, instead of just little problems that they may have.
So not only lawyers do we have here, but we have elder care coordinators. So you're able to tap into multi-resources under one roof, which makes it a lot simpler for the client, I would imagine.
Absolutely. To have everything here under one roof is fantastic. And then, of course, you know, we have a variety of professionals that we work with and that we're familiar with outside. So even if something's not covered here, we can find that to get our clients to the right person to address that issue.
Excellent. Not only that, but you've kind of done the footwork for people as well. I mean, it takes a lot of cost, time, even frustration, going from agency to agency, trying to make sure they all coordinate and work together. This makes it more an effective approach, like you said.
It does. It does. I mean, I think people like coming in and just having to deal with everything under one roof instead of having to jump around to different places.
not only if a person comes in, like you say, initially for one aspect, and maybe they don't need special coordinators at that time. Kind of nice knowing you're working with a team that has your future set up. Should in the future you need something like that, obviously they're there for you.
Absolutely, and as an example of what I do more, the litigation aspect, whether it's a contested guardianship or conservatorship, and then we're advising a person who is a guardian maybe for their parent and is facing some issues, we have them come back to us periodically, and they'll consult with one of our care coordinators who will help them address that little problem, so they know that those services are there, and then we can help flag them. They come to us, we're having this kind of a problem. We know how to route them to the person that can solve their problem, and we do work as a team. All the attorneys here work together very well. We have myself and then Brooke Brustol, who is also responsible for litigation, like myself. The transactional side, Rick Romeo, Richard Vincent, Sarah Jones, excellent attorneys that handle more of the transactional estate planning side of things, as well as the life care planning. We have two wonderful paralegals, Diana Cheatham and Lee Teichman, who do a fantastic job. First line of contact that the client gets. Wonderful receptionists. We also do fiduciary services. So we'll actually, if someone cannot find someone to take on, whether it's a personal representative, executor appointment, a trustee, sometimes a power of attorney, a conservator. If they can't agree, our firm will do that for them, and we have an excellent fiduciary services person, Bridget Rodriguez, working here that kind of helps behind the scenes, even though the attorneys will be appointed and will help administer estates. I also do a lot of investigations where there's allegations of misuse of funds, and I'll get appointed on kind of in a special role to report to the court and to investigate and to dig into the numbers to see if something has been happening that shouldn't have been happening, and then it'll take it from there. But it fills a need that's very important, because otherwise, like with what I was just explaining, parties would have to litigate a lot of those issues, and still litigation sometimes ensues from them, but oftentimes by doing a thorough report, telling the court, here's what's happened, it will often drive a resolution of it, rather than throwing the parties into a situation where they might have to spend, tens of thousands or $100,000.
We all we plan for the future so that we can enjoy our future, and also so after we're gone, the folks can enjoy, like, our families as well. Tell me why it's so important for people to make sure they have estate planning in place.
Well, you don't want the state making the decision for you. And so if you have no estate planning in place, then the intestacy statutes of Colorado will dictate where your estate goes. If you have young children, the money, if you don't have something set up for them, for example, the money will go directly to them. You'll have to go to court to get conservatorships, which terminate, at 21, which is perhaps earlier than most people would want their children to inherit large sums of money. The other thing is that having estate planning done with a good, reputable law firm gives you the opportunity to express what the person what they want. And then in the event that there's later questions about it, if there's something controversial, if they wanted to disinherit a child for very legitimate reasons, for example, then that the attorney, in the event that there is will contest litigation, for example, can be a great witness and can say, this is why they did what they did. If those things are done in the abstract without lawyers, it's a recipe for litigation. And, if people might have a handwritten document, which is, arguably, there's a statute that allows you to do a handwritten document will, as long as it's signed and dated. But, I've seen, and from litigating these matters for so long, I've seen people that have tried to kind of take the shortcut, didn't want to spend a little bit of money doing estate planning, and ended up, having an estate, their legacy, unfortunately, instead of being clear and what they wanted and having it ministered, it becomes a legacy of litigation, and yeah, which is sad. And I mean, you never want to see that happen to anybody. And even when we get involved at that stage, our goal is to try to resolve the problem for the family and look at the family and try to find a solution. Rather than litigating a case to the max, because that's not usually in people's best interest. I mean, sometimes there's very good legal issues that need to be discussed, but in this context, I think it's more often that you have family members that have had deep-seated emotional issues, either with their parent or with their siblings, and trying not to feed into that frenzy and look at it objectively and get people thinking, let's find a way to resolve this, short of going to court and spending a week in trial and having you with tens of thousands of dollars and your family with tens of thousands of dollars. We're not therapy.
Sure. So you're basically saying untimely passing, premature passing is not something we just experience in the media, like here recently for the Hollywood elites,
Right.
but basically this can happen to anyone. When is it people should set up their wills, trusts, dependable, durable power of attorneys? When should that take place?
Well, I think the first time it really needs to happen is when people have children. And as soon as they have children, that's when, a good triggering effect. If they have minor kids, because you want to set up a contingent trust in your will to make sure your kids are provided for, in the event someone happens, that someone you want to control the money for your kids that you leave to your kids, which especially when you're younger may just be life insurance policies and things like that. But that's usually the part where you'd want to look at the estate planning. But you'd always want to look at it every so often.
Sure.
I mean, the things that I find lead to more litigation later in life is where you have second and third marriages and stepchildren and things like that, and then all of a sudden one side of the family feels like they're being excluded to the detriment of the other. And so reviewing your estate planning, making sure, well, okay, I got married, for a second time. My spouse has, different children than I have. How do we provide for this entire family? What do we want our wishes to be? So we don't leave this family the legacy of litigation I was talking about before.
As we're thinking about the future later on as we become elders, I imagine it's very beneficial to decide today and now what your basically medical care might be or what it could be. It's a lot better to put in place now what you plan. Does that help for people to lay all that out while they're in a state of mind where they could do that?
Oh, it helps tremendously, and we actually have here at our firm what's called a value assessment survey, and we give that out with our estate planning documents. It's a great document because it walks you through end-of-life scenarios, what you would want to have done, and we encourage our clients to actually take the time to go through it. And most importantly, I mean, not only are you looking at the wishes of that if you were in that scenario, would want to happen, would you want to be kept alive by artificial means? But by talking with your family, by putting things in place, you're taking the pressure off your family. So they're not guessing, what, mom may have wanted, or then, in more messier situations, if wishes aren't clear, you get into a situation where you may have one daughter saying, mom wanted to be kept alive, or a son saying, well, she wouldn't want to be kept alive, and then you have to go to court to solve that. And these are, there's so much emotion around dealing just with those issues anyway, without having information about what mom wanted, without having a court case going on at the same time. So the more planning that could be done in that regard, the better.
As children, obviously, we all read our parents differently, so that can be very confusing. Here in Colorado, we have great choices, many options for nursing homes. But basically, I imagine that can be also very overwhelming, so many options. Do you have a team here that can help people in choosing a nursing home, as well as how they're going to pay for it and that type of thing?
We do, and I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention our care coordinators earlier. So Sandy Tobin and Mary Beth Leitzman are our two care coordinators here. Sandy is up here in the Louisville office, and we also have an office in Denver where Mary Beth is. They have a lot of experience in trying to find nursing homes for people, and so as part of the life care piece, that's what they're doing a lot of the time. They're finding the right fit, their familiarity with nursing homes, and given that they're spread all over the metro area, they often help people find, what's going to be the right option. Will this place take Medicaid at some point, which given the cost of long-term care, is a serious consideration for a lot of people. Some places will take Medicaid, after you private pay for a period of time. So being familiar with that maze is a huge resource that we have here.
Speaking of Medicaid, do you feel sometimes the elderly do not even look at Medicaid properly because they're misinformed of how the whole program actually works?
They are, and yes, and the regulations are very difficult to keep up with, even for lawyers that practice in this area. And I'll say, my partners, Rick Romeo and Richard Vincent, are experts in that area. I can't even begin to try to keep up because I don't focus on it that much. But there's so many misnomers about Medicaid and Medicaid planning that I see from the litigation side of things, that people often make horrific mistakes thinking that they are protecting themselves from Medicaid. Like, for example, they think that they could just transfer all their assets away, and therefore, they can qualify for Medicaid because it's a needs-based program. However, there's a 5-year look-back period for transferring assets away where you can disqualify yourself from Medicaid eligibility. And, when transferring assets away, the other things that can happen is you think, well, I want to avoid Medicaid, or another thing we see, we want to avoid probate, which really isn't that scary in Colorado if done correctly. They'll transfer a deed on a house, for example, to their kids. And then all of a sudden their kids own title to their property. And, they are no longer the title holders to their property. And if they get crosswise with their kids, or if their kids get into trouble, or, have creditors, they can expose their house to all kinds of liability. I've had to litigate, a handful of cases to recover title. And there is a way to do it. Called a resulting trust and a constructive trust and equitable theories to do that. But it's very difficult, and it takes a lot of work, and they're concepts that a lot of courts aren't familiar with. I just had one go up on the Court of Appeals that came back that upheld it, and it was a very sad case where this woman transferred all her property, trusted her kids, and then her kids said, well, she needed help, and her kids basically said, well, we're keeping the property. And so she couldn't afford the cost of long-term care. We had to go through court. We had to go through the Court of Appeals. We've still, now she's in a nursing home. But, people, these misperceptions of what Medicaid is and what probate are, and people's unwillingness to maybe talk to a lawyer and say, I'd rather, spend for an hour of an attorney's time, sometimes can lead to a $100,000, litigation case. So.
Penny of prevention versus a pound of regret on the back end. Absolutely. So you're basically saying Medicaid and asset protection pretty much go hand in hand there. If you've got somebody who has done their estate planning, they put everything in place as well as they thought they could, and yet after they're gone, maybe litigation, like you say, still needs to take place. Possibly, maybe somebody was left out of a will, or like you said, a power of attorney is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is something that you pretty much specialize in right there as well.
That's correct. That's about 100% of my practice. I mean, I've gotten into where I also advise both lay, regular people, and professional fiduciaries too when they're administering these estates and navigating these types of issues. But estate litigation is pretty much all I do these days, and I enjoy it. I mean, it's hard sometimes, and you get to deal with a lot of very emotional and angry people, and emotional and angry lawyers. I find especially emotional and angry lawyers to be very frustrating, because an attorney's job is to be objective and to look, to help the person try to solve the problem without buying into this. And because if you lose that objectivity, I think you lose the ability to properly advise your client, because they're already emotional. And unfortunately, I've seen sometimes where attorneys take advantage of that. And that's, the worst possible thing you can do, because in my mind as an attorney, because you're supposed to help people solve their problems, not milk them because they're angry about something. And so, at least my own perspective is trying to help people find a solution to the problem as quickly and inexpensively as possible is always the best thing to do. I mean, it's not always going to happen. Sometimes issues have to go to trial. You have to have hearings. But trying to find that solution, as quickly as possible is usually in the best interest of the person, as well as the other parties involved.
I've always said a professional is somebody who can keep their passion in check so they can still basically use the resources and the knowledge they have to help others. Right. Viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. First of all, on the website, you can learn more about the team right there. Basically, this is a firm that began back in 1995, a very holistic approach. Instead of just focusing on the one area that you may need, they are prepared and ready to help you through all the different areas that you need in the future. You can also take a look there on the website, and basically, like you said, they have that a download there that you can download the value assessment that'll help you kind of walk you through and see what it is that you may be needing there. Once again, let me ask you, as people plan for the future and basically they try to do the right thing and it doesn't work out well for them, what would you tell people to do at that time? And they're pretty nervous, maybe something, hit the fan, if you will. Do they call up and set up a consultation? Is that where it begins?
They do. They call our office. We also have information on our website where they can send an email, or it basically comes through as like an email, describing their problem. But typically, they'll call our office. They'll talk to our receptionist, who will try to help them if it's a potential life care situation, life care planning situation. We'll get them to one of our care coordinators right away. If they call about a litigation matter, they'll usually get a call where we have to perform a conflict check to make sure we haven't represented some other party which could be adverse, and then we get them in touch with, usually it's our litigation associate, Brooke Brestol, who will do a full intake with them and determine if we can help them. And then if we can, we'll all talk about it as a team and we'll set them up for a consultation. And, we do triage work here almost. I mean, we look at it, how urgent is it? Do they need something? There's a lot of emergency hearings. If someone's stealing money from their parent and they find out about it, that's a pretty important thing to get on right away. So we'll try to get those people in a little bit sooner. If we need to get into court sooner, we can usually do that under the circumstances. So that's how the people come in.
One of the things you said earlier was that triggers when you should get started is having children. I would imagine even more so for somebody with a child with special needs. I know that basically Richard specializes in the area of special needs. That can be an overwhelming time. Tell me what you offer for folks there.
Absolutely. So for special needs planning, we do a lot of special needs trusts where people can set up under the laws of Colorado and the United States, they can set up additional funds that they can have available for their children who do have special needs, while at the same time not disrupting their public benefits. And so, because the public benefits, depending on the special needs, are critically important, and you don't want to disrupt something like Medicaid or services for the developmentally disabled, for example. But then they could put some money in these special needs trusts, which can supplement the needs. And there's certain things that you can spend them on. I mean, there's certain things that you can't, but they can make their life more full while also not disrupting their public benefits. And Richard Vincent is an expert in that area and very good. And he's in our Denver office, but he's up here in our Louisville office once a week too. So.
Excellent. As I watch my parents age, I see almost a feeling of vulnerability. And like you say, basically it's sadly that this is a time when financial abuse can take place. And so obviously it's important to have somebody in your corner that, like you say, can stay out of the passionate and anger area, if you will, and really take it head front. Is both offices, are you able to pretty much serve the entire Boulder and Denver area?
Oh yeah, we serve the entire Front Range area. As far from the litigation standpoint too. I mean, I go all over the state, and into smaller counties where they may not have the expertise, to deal with these types of issues, or there may not be enough attorneys because sometimes these cases have multiple parties involved. But no, we serve the entire metro area. Absolutely.
Excellent. Last time, viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen. You're going to see their contact information right there. You can also take a look at the website. A lot of articles right there on the website, and basically learn more about the team. You're going to see that you have plenty of resources under one roof, basically to take care of you. This basically is the best of both worlds. And you've got the personal side as well as the legal side taken care of for you. This is a firm that began back in 1995. That is Vincent, Romeo, and Rodriguez. This is Gary Atensi with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.